right, I've already got Chris Smith on the line. What's going on, man? And Mitchy3, always good to see you. 20 Savage, there we go. Now everybody's kind of coming into the chat now. That's what we like to see. It's good to see you guys. Let me get this set up and we'll jump right on into the chat. All right, so Chris Smith, Mitchy3, 20 Savage, Brody L, Go Irish. Of course, as always, I know you're a frequent commenter, so of course, I've got 8 people on the stream now. Pretty good, considering. I mean, I appreciate you guys jumping on right there in the middle of the afternoon. I know sometimes it can be tough, school, work, all that good stuff like that. So I appreciate you guys able to meet with us and join and talk some football right there in the heart of the afternoon, taking whatever time you've got, driving in the car, got a break, anytime we got, we appreciate you guys jumping on with us. And Chris Smith, not football related, but you got some good looking ties. Well, appreciate that. Hey, we like to look, I'm not a tie collector by any means, but I like to have a pretty good variety of ties, you know, gotta have it. I mean, we always go with the plain, white button down. Maybe we'll switch that up someday. White just goes really well with the blazer, but appreciate that. We like to keep it classy, like to look good. That'd look good on the streams. Hey, Emperor of Rome, good to see you. Glad that you were able to join us. Brandon Franklin, yeah, your phone might die. Well, let's hope it doesn't. Find that charger, man, so you can stay on the stream with us. But no, I think some of you guys may have gotten the Twitter alert. I want to go ahead and apologize now. I know we didn't get out, didn't post a live stream or anything on Sunday. The weekend got extremely hectic. I was back, as some people like to call it, at Gridiron headquarters or Gridiron HQ. And some things just got really hectic. I had to make the drive back up to school, and just kind of times, was able to slip away from me. So, apologize for that, but we're back today. We will be back on Thursday, and I've been saying this for weeks now, but I promise you I'm going to be getting some videos out, some actual content out here in the next few days, some actual videos, and not all live streams. Even though I'm starting to love these live streams a little bit more each time we do them. Always get some good discussion. It's good for me just to sit here and talk and not have to worry about necessarily a time limit. So I think these have been really beneficial for everybody. But I definitely will have some new content coming out here soon. So yeah, apologize for that, but we're back on track the way we want it to be. All right, so we've been going for a couple minutes now. Got about 8 people on. Hopefully we'll get some more here. Like I said, I posted this one out on Twitter. Got a pretty good response from our Twitter post. And if you don't follow us on Twitter, it's at Gridiron Expert. We do post some predictions there during the season, but right now it's going to be mostly used for updates and keeping y'all updated on what's to come, the new videos, when we're going to have our live streams, and all that stuff. So make sure y'all keep your eyes out for that. All right, so we're going to start answering some questions, and we'll jump into some topics that I've got. If you don't know already, before we jump into that, first off, yes, Super Chat is on. Any contributions are greatly appreciated. Also, if you want to get out of the chat and hit the like button, smash that like button, as some people say, that also really helps us out a lot as well. Right now, we've got 1 like. We'd love to get a couple more in there. So do that at your own convenience. So, Brody L, are the Lakers making the playoffs? Obviously a basketball question, and we talk basketball. I mean, it's the off season now, guys, so we can talk some basketball and address that kind of stuff. Right now, the Lakers, and I actually just did a show here at Arkansas State where I'm at school. We just did a sports broadcast show. I'm the host for that, and we just talked about the Lakers. They're 3 games out of the 8 seed right now in the Western Division. And, LeBron James tends to, kind of put on this playoff mode. This playoff mode is going to be activated. He really shoots lights out and just kind of takes control of the team. We saw that in Miami, even though he had a lot more help down there. We definitely saw that in Cleveland. Can he get the Lakers to the playoffs? And here's what I'm going to say. I do not think they're going to make it. I'll say that now. The West is just too competitive. If he was still in the East, I think, first off, they wouldn't even be outside of the top 8. But even if they were, that they would be able to slip in. The East is much weaker than the West. I don't think LeBron's going to be able to get them in there. If they do, they'll be an 8 seed, maybe a 7 seed, and they will lose first round of the playoffs. They would end up having to play the Warriors or the Nuggets, maybe the Thunder, depending on where they landed. So if they get into the playoffs, they're not going to go far. But right now, I'm going to say no, they won't. Tony Savage agrees with me there that no, that they won't make the playoffs, and that's going to be crazy. I think that'd be the first time we would have an NBA playoffs without LeBron James since 2005, I want to say, so very early on in his career. But it's the first time for everything, and I don't think that's going to happen. And that's unfortunate. I mean, it depends on if you like LeBron. If you're a Lakers fan or you like LeBron, that's unfortunate for you. If you have been tired of seeing the same old, LeBron James going to the finals and hearing the same storylines, comparing him to MJ, and you want to see somebody different, that's going to be a good thing. It depends on your opinion and how you like to see your basketball being played. But I don't think they're going to make it. But there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. 3 games is not a lot in the grand scheme of things. So we'll have to wait and find out. Emperor of Rome, do you think that the NFL fixes games? If yes, then what are some games that you think were rigged? Man, that's a pretty bold question. Pretty big question. I do believe that I personally believe that I've seen more examples of some fixed games or some blatant bad calls in college sports, in college football, definitely in college basketball, and I see a lot of that on especially during March Madness, which is of course coming up very, very soon. I think we do tend to see quite a bit of bad calls and some fixed games. I mean, I'm not saying the tournament's fixed, because we've seen plenty of Cinderella stories. Loyola Chicago, we've seen Butler make runs, we've seen UConn make runs. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen. NFL wise, like the most recent example of a blatantly bad called game, officiated game, was the NFC Championship game between the Saints and the Rams. I do not think that was a fixed game. I think they missed a call there, and it was a horrible call. Once again, the Saints had multiple chances to win that game. I don't think that was necessarily fixed, although I think all those referees were from the California area, so the LA area, so maybe they had some Rams ties or wanted to see their Rams make the Super Bowl. I know that a couple years ago, another NFC Championship game many people thought was rigged was, I think, the Seahawks and the 49ers. I think that game going to I think it's when the Seahawks won, and they played the Broncos that year, or maybe it was the Patriots. I know they beat the Packers, they played the Patriots, so beat the Broncos. And then you can go as far back as when the Ravens and the 49ers met in the Super Bowl. Now, that may have been a fixed game there because of that power outage. Never have I ever seen I've never seen a stadium like that. I think it was played in New Orleans at Mercedes-Benz. All the power go out, the lights go out in the Superdome or any dome for that matter, let alone on the biggest stage of the NFL, one of the biggest stages in sports. They wouldn't allow that to happen. But if you recall, that game was just an utter blowout. And I think that kind of stopped that Ravens momentum, allowed the 49ers to crawl back into it and make it a game. Yes, the Ravens ended up winning the Super Bowl regardless, but I think had that not happened, the 49ers didn't get that break, it still could have been an ugly blowout. So I think maybe that was a little bit fixed. There have probably been plenty of other examples. Some people thought maybe early 2000s, they thought that the Patriots, the Tuck Rule game, that was kind of fixed. There probably been a couple handfuls here and there, but I think there are plenty of instances there that they didn't always get caught. But I think it's not just the NFL thing. I think I said March Madness especially. I think I see quite a bit of that because a lot of it sometimes comes down to ratings, comes down to TV ratings and viewership. You look at a team like you got your powerhouses in the NCAA. You've got Kentucky, you've got North Carolina, you've got Michigan State, you've got Duke, and Duke and Kentucky, and plenty of people have been upset in the NCAA tournament before. I mean, Duke lost to Lehigh a couple of years ago. They lost to Mercer. Like I said, Loyola Chicago went on a tear. Texas A&M beat North Carolina in the round of 32 last year. But I think there were some instances where they want some of those big dog schools to make it to the Elite Eight or Final Four because sometimes people just aren't going to care as much sometimes if they're not like a big-time underdog. Loyola Chicago was a big-time underdog. That's enjoyable for people. But you got like an 8 seed beating a 1 seed. That's an underdog story, but kind of not really. So I think you see more of that in the college sports than the NFL. And I know that was a very long explanation there. Brandon Franklin, and I can see y'all talking about this in the chat a little bit. What is my stance on paying college athletes? Should college athletes be paid across the board? And I'm sorry if there are any college athletes in the chat, but no, I don't think they should get paid. And George Stice, appreciate that. Love the streams. Glad you do. I'm glad you continue to join us and come back on a regular basis. Always good to see you. But no, college athletes should not be paid. And here's why. the majority, I would, maybe not majority, but there are a good number of college athletes that are getting paid because they're getting paid on scholarship. Their college is paid for because they are getting practically full ride scholarships to go play football or basketball or baseball or whatever sport it is that they want to play. And that's great. That's great. That's how these sports work. That's how these programs work. You've got to recruit. You offer scholarships to some of your best players, your 5 stars, your 4 stars, guys like that. And then you've got people that can earn scholarships. You know that you've seen some of those very heartwarming videos of players that they don't even expect it. And the coach announces it, or they have some special way of saying that they've been put on scholarship. But they shouldn't be getting paid. They shouldn't be getting a scholarship plus money on top of that. Especially not all these players are going pro. They're not going to the league, but your high prospects that are going to go pro are the ones that are on scholarship. Then they're going to go pro, and they're going to definitely get drafted. They're going to make some good money, big time money. How they choose to spend that money it's up to them. If they're going to be wise with it or not. But no, college athletes should be paid, and I think if they are going to be paid, it needs to be a set amount, obviously for everybody, and it needs to go into like a fund. It doesn't need to be like given to them for just to spend for the hell of it. Like, hey, you can spend it on whatever you want. It needs to go and it can grow until they graduate college, but it doesn't need to just be given to them as like a paycheck. I think scholarships are enough, and I think I saw Mitchie3 say there. I think he put that in there. I think he just retracted it. But yeah, scholarships are enough. We love college football. We love college sports. We love sports in general. As the fans, that is important to us. And for a university, that's important because they get a lot of money from their athletic programs. It's big for money-wise and for boosters and for the fans and for the students. But the biggest point of going to college is to get an education. That's what you need to go to college for. Now, a lot of these players aren't necessarily doing that. College basketball, for instance, you go for a year, the one and done, and go to the league. I can't say I wouldn't do that if I had that type of talent to go play basketball or football. I'm not saying I probably would just stick around for a year or two, and you don't want to risk getting hurt and then go pro and make millions of dollars. I get that, but the priority you should be going to college to get an education. And I feel for the people and for the families that really, really struggle. And another reason why college athletes shouldn't get paid because they are going on scholarships. And I feel for the families and the students that don't have that type of talent and aren't getting any money to go to college, or they're getting very little and they're taking out tons of money in debt for student loans and all that kind of stuff, and they're deep in debt when they graduate, and they're not getting any money or any help necessarily, maybe a little bit but not a whole lot. So another reason why the athletes especially shouldn't be getting paid. That's just my opinion, and I think a lot of people agree with that. Emperor of Rome agreed with that. Mitchie3 agreed with that. Richard Neal says, if so, limit money so kids don't go to big money, higher paying schools. Right. So, kind of all on the same page there. And Christopher Smith said, I did a paper on college athletes being paid, specifically football and basketball. Average basketball player is worth $140,000. The NCAA is making $13 billion just off of March Madness in 10 years. Same with football. So, right. And that's what some people are saying. We had for those of you that loved the NCAA basketball games and the NCAA football games especially, that was kind of a major reason those are not continued anymore, is because those video games were using their likeness, and they really weren't using their likeness. They weren't making the players look like them, but they were using their numbers, they were using their hometown, they were using their weight and their speed and their size. They basically took them and put them into a video game, and then they weren't getting any money off it, but EA Sports and NCAA guys like that were getting money off it. So in a sense of that, I do get that. I still think they should get paid, though. For me, I would be happy to go play football at a major university and then to get to see myself in a video game. That's pretty awesome. And then if I'm good enough, I'm going to go pro, and I'll get to see myself for real in a Madden video game or NBA or whatever I choose to play. MCD Sports 4, I did not overlook your comment if you're still in the chat. He was wondering what I think of the Maryland Terrapins getting Josh Jackson. And a couple of weeks ago we discussed Josh Jackson and Nick Starkel and them had not made a decision on where they were going to go transfer. And we had said maybe Josh Jackson was going to go to a school like Florida State because they were in desperate need of a quarterback. But no, Josh Jackson going to Maryland, a big-time get for them. A Maryland team that, under they got a new coach, right? If I'm not mistaken. I'm going to find my notes here. Yeah, Mike Locksley. That's what I thought. Mike Locksley, new coach, brings in a new quarterback, an experienced quarterback from the ACC, who went down with an injury this year at Virginia Tech, but has plenty of talent for a Maryland team that I was already expecting to hover around 6 or 7 wins. Anyways, I'm not saying Maryland's going to go compete for a Big Ten title or anything, but they are looking good. Like, that's big for them. That's huge for them to get a solid quarterback. So I think that's great. That's a big time get for the Terrapins and a new head coach and a team that I think should get to a bowl game this year. And then Josh Jackson will be able to stick around for a couple of years. So that's going to be big. That's a huge time get, huge time transfer. And I know, and that's especially big for Maryland, considering that they were that Jalen Hurts was allegedly in contention or thought about going to Maryland, and he backed out and went to Oklahoma. So that was, Maryland's crushed by that, but now they're getting. Josh Jackson, you can't compare him to Jalen Hurts. I think Hurts is better, but you're still getting a solid quarterback there, and they needed that. Yeah, he also said, MCD Sports 4, when we were talking about fixed games, that as a Ravens fan, of course, being from Maryland, thought the power outage was a bunch of bull. And, yeah, I would have been too. I would have been very frustrated. I wasn't even a fan of the Ravens or the 49ers, and I was angry about it because he had to sit there for 30 minutes to an hour of just this power outage delay when it never should have happened in the first place. So, yeah, I think it was frustrating for everybody involved. Maybe not for the 49ers, who got a little bit of a break and a chance to regroup and make it competitive, but still, I think it was very frustrating. Christopher Smith, why is Duke's Daniel Jones so highly rated? If you don't know, if you haven't been following, and that's one thing I do have on the list here to talk about. Of course, we have the NFL Combine coming up. That's a big time opportunity for these prospects to kind of make a name for themselves and improve their draft stock. Daniel Jones is one of the highest rated quarterbacks in this year's NFL draft. And we've got some decent quarterbacks coming out. We've got, Dwayne Haskins, we've got Kyler Murray, you got Daniel Jones, Ryan Finley, Drew Lock. So why is Daniel Jones from Duke so high up there? He had a very, very good career with the Blue Devils. And David Cutcliffe knows how to coach his quarterbacks. David Cutcliffe, as you recall, was the quarterback or was the head coach for Eli Manning back at Ole Miss early 2000s. So he knows how to coach his quarterbacks. He's an offensive mind. Why is he so highly rated? I think the build and the arm strength and his pocket awareness is key for Daniel Jones. Looking at him and the way he has played, especially the way he played in that bowl game, Duke played extremely well there. He played extremely well there, improved that draft stock. I think he looks more like a system NFL quarterback, and that's huge for NFL teams looking for that. I think Daniel Jones will go second round. I don't think he's a first round draft pick, but I think he'll go second round to a team that needs a quarterback. And look, you take what the talent that he has now, you develop him behind a quarterback that has plenty of experience. Like, I don't know where he'd go, for example, but a quarterback that is a veteran and can teach. He doesn't even have to be one of the elite quarterbacks. I read a very, very good article about how Josh McCown was a very big mentor to Sam Darnold with the New York Jets. Josh McCown is not going to be a Hall of Famer. He is not one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, not even close. But he's been in the league long enough to know how to read defenses and I've got the experience to play. I can teach this rookie everything that I know. You just need a veteran, a guy that's played enough and has been in the system long enough to teach these rookies kind of how the ropes of the NFL. It doesn't have to be a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees or anybody like that. It's just got to be someone that's a veteran, has been in the game long enough, and knows what they're talking about. And that's going to be beneficial for all of these quarterbacks coming in there. Some will be better than others because they'll get put in a position where they are behind a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees, someone like that. But Aaron Rodgers. But he's highly rated because if you go watch the film of Daniel Jones, and you'll see why. I think Duke, having not been super elite these past couple of years, he kind of got overshadowed a little bit. They weren't like ACC title contenders or anything, but he's a pretty darn good quarterback, not gonna lie. Brandon Franklin, do I like college sports over pro sports, and why? I do like college sports over pro sports. Why I do? Because the great thing about the pro sports is that they're all professionals, obviously. So you can have upsets. Like, for example, you take, a really, really bad team like, let's say this year, the Arizona Cardinals. If the Arizona Cardinals had beat the New England Patriots, that's a big-time upset. That's a pretty big shock, right? What I like, but the thing is they're all professionals. That's why I love it when people say, could this Alabama team beat the Cleveland Browns, back when the Cleveland Browns were actually really, really bad, because they're certainly improving. And I would say no, I don't think they could, because even though the Cleveland Browns were horrible, they're still professionals, right? They've still been in the league long enough. They're still it's a whole new ball game. From the college to the NFL. Now, the college, what I like about it is you got the rankings. You've got, you got the number one team in the country going up against an unranked team, and you see that kind of upset. You see the mighty that fall. I do enjoy that a lot. I like the tradition and the pageantry that comes along with college football. I think there's just a different feel and a different atmosphere for college athletics than it is for pro. Not to take anything away from pro. I like the NFL. I enjoy watching it. I like the NBA. I like the MLB. But I think there's something to be said for college sports. And I think a lot of that comes down to tradition, history, and just the, even though pro sports tend to have longer seasons, you kind of cherish that a little bit. And you've got like a history there, like what qualifies a team for having a good year. The Cleveland Browns, they have a good year, going 7-9, 8-8. That's pretty good for them, considering. College, though, you can take a team that's gone on a 30-year bowl drought or something like that, and that's really, really exciting. So I think there's I just think there's so much more that you can put into college than pros, and that's why I love it so much, by far. John Hopkins, good to see you. A very frequent commenter. Always glad when you're able to join the chat. My thoughts on Justin Herbert being back, legalized quack. Also, I still love that username. Very frequent commenter as well. He says, and before I give my take, he says, huge to get Justin Herbert back. Oregon has a really tough road schedule, which would be tough on a freshman or sophomore quarterback. Absolutely right. Justin Herbert is going to be, I think, next year in the NFL draft, one of the top quarterback prospects by far. Could be a potential top 10 pick next year, depending on how he does this year. But Oregon, we've talked about Oregon a lot over these past couple live streams about the solid recruiting class that they brought in, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've got some key transfers at wide receiver. And then you got Justin Herbert, one of the best quarterbacks, I think, in the entire nation. That's so beneficial for this Oregon team. And that's going into this Pac-12 season where I don't think there's I think Oregon is the front runner. Everybody's still talking about Washington. And look, Washington's not going to go from, they won the Pac-12 this year. They're not going to tank. Because we're talking about Chris Peterson here. I mean, he is a good football coach. He doesn't let that happen to his teams. But they did lose a lot of talent. A lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they lost Myles Gaskin. They lost Jake Browning. And I know they're bringing in Jacob Eason at quarterback, and that's huge. He's been waiting. He's had out a year, so he had experience at Georgia as a freshman. He's had out a year, learned the system. He's going to be fine with Washington. I think it's Washington or Oregon that's going to win the Pac-12. And I know it's a ways away, but the Pac-12 to me, besides those, are weak. I know you got Washington State, who's showing improvement. I think will still be a contender. Some people think USC could be on the rise. I'm not going that far yet. Colorado's not going to be in the mix. Some people are saying Utah. There are a bunch of teams that we're talking about like, oh yeah, maybe they could be contenders. Maybe they're going to play well. But I only feel super confident right now about Washington and Oregon. And right now, if I had to choose, Oregon owns the edge over Washington across the board. So, and a lot of that does contribute to Justin Herbert having that leadership back at the most important position in the game. So it's going to be very exciting to see. But I'm very excited to see Justin Herbert. Emperor of Rome, what was the worst college football team last year? That's a tough question. If we're talking Power 5, I can give you a Power 5 team. If we're talking all 130, I don't even know. I can't even memorize half of the records from some of these Group of 5 schools. Power 5 wise, though, what really justifies? That's why I really want to see some of these really bad teams. I mean, you can look at. Kansas has been really, really bad. They were pitiful last year. Louisville was horrible last year. Comic Dude 45, good to see you. He says Rutgers, they were very bad last year. Arkansas out of the SEC, they were horrible last year. So maybe if you pit those teams in a 4-team, 8-team college football playoff, I'd love to see who'd come out as winner in that one because that's tough to say. So who was the worst team last year? If you want to go all the way down to like Group of 5, I'm trying to think back. I know UConn was very, very bad. So I'm trying to, take a couple Sunbelt schools out of there. I think you had Louisiana Monroe maybe was pretty pitiful. Navy struggled. I wouldn't put Navy as one of the worst teams, but they struggled more so than usual for the midshipmen. So Common Dude 45 says Kansas won Uncle Lou's worst of the worst playoff. Probably not surprising. I'd say if I had to rank them, not in any specific order, you got Kansas in there, Rutgers, Arkansas, Louisville. Those are 4 solid teams in the Power 5 at least that were, like, not saying you were expecting a whole lot of out of those schools, but they were very major disappointments and just played horribly. Like, you knew it week in and week out they just weren't going to be competitive, and that's unfortunate for anybody that's a fan of those 4 schools I just listed. Let's see what else we got here. What else we got? From Brandon Franklin, Louisville Cardinals were the worst team last year. Hate to say, so he's a Louisville fan, and they were pretty abysmal. And that's unfortunate. It really is. Eli Arbeza, haven't seen you before. Glad to see you if you're still here. Can Les Miles turn the Jayhawks around? Yes, but not this year. Short and simple. He will. Not going to say he's going to turn them into national title contenders or anything. He'll turn them around. He'll get them back to a bowl game. It ain't going to happen this year, though. George Stice, do I think the Arizona Cardinals will trade Josh Rosen? Now, here's the thing. Josh Rosen is a good quarterback. He was a good quarterback coming out of college. He dealt with quite a bit of injuries at UCLA. When healthy, though, he's got a heck of an arm and I think a decent quarterback. Look, the Cardinals were set up for failure this year. Let's just be honest. New head coach, true freshman quarterback. I mean, rookie quarterback coming out of college. A run game that David Johnson, who is very, very talented, but was coming off an injury, which is a very difficult thing to do to bounce back after an injury. Not really a very solid receiving core. Christian Kirk, who's young. Larry Fitzgerald, who's a veteran, but not what he used to be. I mean, a defense that was kind of getting depleted. The Cardinals were set up for failure. Will they trade Josh Rosen? I wouldn't. Now, it's a very intriguing hire to get Cliff Kingsbury as their new head coach. And I remember Cliff Kingsbury even saying that if he had a choice, and this was before he took the job, of course, that he would take Kyler Murray at number 1. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because they have a quarterback in Josh Rosen. And honestly, who's going to want Josh Rosen right now? I wouldn't want him after what I've seen. But keep in mind also, and we're ranking these NFL quarterbacks. Keep that in mind. We are still working on that. Jared Goff had a horrible rookie season. And Jared Goff got his team to the Super Bowl this year. I'm not saying he was the only reason. Todd Gurley was a huge part of that. The defense was a huge part of that. But Jared Goff showed that he's capable of being middle of the pack or maybe above average quarterback. Maybe it just takes some time for Josh Rosen. And we know how talented Cliff Kingsbury's quarterbacks have been in the past. Maybe he can develop Josh Rosen. I think that also was a bit of a tipping point for why the Cardinals hired him. Yes, he failed and struggled at Texas Tech, but he can develop a good quarterback. He did that at Texas Tech. Maybe he can do that with Rosen in Arizona. I don't think they're going to trade him. I think that'd be a poor choice for them to trade him. Henry H. Which quarterback in this year's draft has the highest bust potential? Highest bust potential. There's more quarterbacks out there that we're probably not listing. But the biggest names, of course, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins. I mentioned them earlier. Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins. You have Ryan Finley. You've got Drew Lock. You've got Daniel Jones. I think those are your top 5. I would go as far to say that bust-wise, I'd be looking somewhere around probably, I would think Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock out of Missouri. Very, very talented quarterback. Can do a little bit with his legs, not that much. Had a heck of an arm, though. Arm strength and accuracy, very important in the NFL. Size for him, not super great, though. I think Dwayne Haskins, I actually might even go as far as to say Dwayne Haskins as well. And a lot of people might disagree with me on that, especially if we got some Ohio State fans in the chat. But I don't think Dwayne Haskins is what he's cracked up to be. Very talented quarterback, was blowing it out of the water out Ohio State. Stephen A. Smith, I remember, made a horrible comment saying he's more of a runner than a passer. And as we all know, that is completely false. But yes, he can make some plays on the ground, like with his legs. But I don't know. I don't think Dwayne Haskins has what it takes right now. But many mock drafts are projecting him to go to the Giants. And maybe he can learn a little bit for a year or two behind Eli Manning, who might slowly be on his way out. We don't know. But I'd say maybe Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock, for me, would have the biggest bust potential. John Hopkins, BYU season was a lot better this past season. Do I think they'll be good again? When we did our predictions last year, I was actually at I was in Provo. I was at LaVell Edwards Stadium, filming that BYU prediction, and it was a beautiful, beautiful stadium, beautiful city. And I kind of dogged on BYU a little bit. I didn't expect a whole lot out of them this season, but they did. They did impress. Won their bowl game against Western Michigan, showed major strides of improvement, and they've got a young quarterback that I think, and that's something that BYU has struggled with lately, is keeping their quarterbacks healthy. Keep them healthy. The team stays healthy. BYU is going to go back bowling. 7 wins, 8 wins, maybe. And they're not going to tank like they did 2 years ago when they won, 3 games, 4 games, somewhere around there. So, yeah, they're on the right track, John. They really are. I don't think they're going to be, like, elite. I don't think they're going to necessarily be, like, top, 20, anything like that. But they're showing improvement. They're moving in the right direction. So, yes, I think they're going to be okay. 20 Savage says BYU 10-2. That's pretty bold. Pretty bold. Let's see what's going on here in the chat. Emperor of Rome, the Massey Composite lists UTEP as the worst college football team, followed by Connecticut, Rice, Central Michigan. So, like I said, there were a good number of Group of 5 teams that were, I was mostly listing Power 5, as that's one of our primary focuses, although we do predict every single team, all 130 of them. But yeah, UTEP was pretty rough. UTEP and Rice, I remember when I was predicting both of them, I think I had them each at like 1-11. You can go back and look at my predictions for the Conference USA. I'm pretty sure I had them about 1-11 each, and that doesn't surprise me. Connecticut was rough. I did mention them. Central Michigan, who now will be led by, if I'm not mistaken, Jim McElwain. I'm pretty sure Jim McElwain took the job with the Chippewas, so that's a big time get for them. Just a coach that has experience in the SEC. This is going to be his bounce back. He's going to go coach at Central Michigan for a year or two and then try to get his way back into a Power 5 job. Eli Arbeza, good to see you again. If you haven't subscribed, man, I would hope you would. And for all of you in the chat, actually, if you're watching this live stream and you like what you see and you enjoy coming, if you're not subscribed already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Like I said, our goal is to have 2,000 subscribers by the end of March. Certainly have 2,000 subscribers before we kick off prediction season in June. I would hope we can get there, and that's going to just take a lot from you guys, spreading the word and helping us out as best as you can. So if you please continue to like, comment, subscribe all of these videos. We definitely appreciate it. Subscribing more than anything else. But he asked, should the Redskins take a quarterback first round at 15th overall, maybe trade up for Haskins? I wouldn't trade up for Haskins. I think there's going to be a decent number of quarterbacks down around the 15 spot because this draft, especially to me, has been very defensive heavy. On the defensive side of the ball, we got a lot of cornerbacks, got a lot of defensive ends, defensive tackles that I think are going to make a major impact. That's going to take kind of the majority of like the top 10. I think you'll have a couple quarterbacks taken in there. The Redskins, unfortunately, dealing with the Alex Smith injury, will he even be back? And if he is back, will he be okay? And then I know Colt McCoy got injured. I mean, it was just the Redskins were in playoff contention, and then they just got hit with the injury bug, and they were done. But the Redskins are going to obviously know their organization better than anybody else. If they have faith in Alex Smith for a little while longer, I think they could hold off. Because I think Colt McCoy was a decent backup. He really was. But if not, it wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be a horrible idea to take a quarterback at 15. And if I were them, I would consider taking a guy like Daniel Jones or even a Ryan Finley, one of the more underrated quarterbacks. I think it was one of the more underrated quarterbacks in college, and I think is a very underrated quarterback going into this NFL draft. His accuracy and decision making for me, out of Ryan Finley, is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Legalized Quack. BYU, back on the BYU. This is coming from John Hopkins, of course. BYU plays Utah, Tennessee, Washington, USC, and Boise. And first, before I even finish your comment, super chat, $5 super chat. Hey, that means a lot. Legalized Quack, as I mentioned, love the username. I love your continued support. Thank you for that. For those of you that don't know what that is, super chats contributing to our channel and helping us out. And every single bit helps. So really, really do appreciate that. He said, keep up the good work. And we certainly will. We certainly will. We keep up the good work. We continue to do this because of you guys, because of you guys that are continuing to help this channel thrive. So really do appreciate that that contribution. It means a lot, truly. So thank you. He said BYU plays Utah, Tennessee, Washington, USC, and Boise State 10-2 would be incredible. And that's because what 20 Savage said, that BYU might go 10-2, or that's just his early prediction. But you're right. I mean, Utah, Tennessee, Washington, USC, Boise State all could be 5 losses right there. And you're looking at 7-5. I'm not saying those are all going to be losses for BYU, but it's something to keep in mind. And last year, BYU got back on track and shocked the whole college football world by going into Wisconsin and beating the Badgers. 24-21, somewhere around by a field goal. Wisconsin missed the potential game-tying field goal or game-winning, whichever it was. Missed a field goal at the end, and they gave BYU the victory. So BYU has what it takes. They might be able to beat a Boise State. They might be able to beat a USC team that I think is not going to be as good as everybody thinks they're going to be, but it's going to be a tough year, without a doubt. And that's what you get for being independent. Independent, you got to schedule decent opponents, and that's always been tough for BYU. If Jim McElwain, this is from John Hopkins. We mentioned Jim McElwain earlier because he took the job at Central Michigan. He said if Jim McElwain was coaching at Central Michigan when the Kentucky game happened, it would have been a whole other game. Also, the entire season would have changed. Of course, saying had Jim McElwain, right? I mean, we understand what you're saying there. Absolutely, and I agree. Tyler Simmons, will Michigan football continue to underperform under Coach Jim Harbaugh? There, it's gonna go out for a second. All right, I think we're back. Hold on. Michigan, apologize for that. Apologize for the technical difficulty there. Michigan, will they continue to underperform under Jim Harbaugh? Michigan has been a very dominant force in the Big Ten. The problem is, what can you qualify as underperforming? As my team, if I had a team winning 9-10 games consistently, I would love that. But I understand how frustrating it is when he can't beat Ohio State. He can't win the big bowl games. Sure, he beat Florida a couple years ago in like the Citrus Bowl or the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, whatever it was. But has yet to beat Ohio State. Had they beaten Ohio State this year, or a couple of years ago when they was like number 2, number 3, they probably would have made the college football playoff. Couldn't get the job done. Then he loses to Florida this year in the Peach Bowl. He lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl. So the big games that would be huge and huge momentum boosters going into the next season, and just to win a bowl game, he can't get it done. Michigan he's turned that program around and made them consistently competitive. But when will they finally break through and win the big game? So your question, will it continue to happen? I'm going to say yes until proven otherwise. And Ohio State is the team that I think everybody wants to see Michigan to beat, or is the team that Michigan fans really want to see him beat. As I think anybody would want to see them beat their big rival. Your team beat the big rival. He has yet to do that. And Ohio State's production isn't going anywhere. Justin Fields comes in at quarterback. Ryan Day takes over as head coach, a solid head coach. I think it was brilliant to promote from within. So Ohio State, despite losing quite a bit of star power, they're not going to tank, and they're not going to be underachievers this year. They're still going to be a very dominant force in the Big Ten. So we're going to have to wait and find out. But right now, I think until proven otherwise, that Jim Harbaugh might continue to underperform. Eli Arbeza, don't forget the Mormons play Liberty too in a holy war. Could be a trap game for them. You're talking, of course, about BYU, who plays Liberty in another religious matchup. Of course, Utah, BYU, the Holy War. Liberty, a team that is certainly improving, played extremely well in their first year as a Division I school, as an FBS school, and should probably do that again this year, especially with Hugh Freeze as their new head coach. John Hopkins, I assume you mean this year. Do I think that UCF would be undefeated or will go undefeated? And yes, before I get into that, Christopher Smith, everybody hit that like button. Absolutely. We're up to 9 likes. Ain't too bad. I'd love to get double digits. So hit that like button. Help us out a little bit. Certainly helps out with the statistics. That definitely means a lot. And once again, Legalized Quack, if you're still here, that super chat certainly meant a lot as well. Certainly appreciate that more than you know. So thank you so much for that. This year, John Hopkins says, do I think UCF would be undefeated? It's a very tough question. UCF getting a very solid transfer. We hit double-digit likes. That's what we like to see. Thank you guys so much. But they've got Brandon Wimbush transferring over there. Mackenzie Milton still battling that injury, and I think, as I mentioned, I think Mackenzie Milton, had he been healthy, would have led UCF to a victory in the Fiesta Bowl over LSU. Dario Mack Jr. did not play bad by any means. That's not what I'm saying. Defensively, they had some work to do. That's been the biggest concern all along, is that UCF has had a very potent offense. They just haven't had the best of defenses. Who's their quarterback going to be in 2019? Will Milton be back? It was a very, very serious leg injury. Very, very, very bad. Is he going to be well enough to come play? Will it be Dario Mack Jr. or will it be Brandon Wimbush? Both of whom I think will do a fine job under Josh Heupel at Central Florida. But I think, luck's got to run out at some point. The streak ended with that loss to LSU. I don't think they're going to go undefeated this year, especially with a game, I believe, against Stanford. Not saying they can't beat Stanford, but that's a big-time game for them, a big resume builder. But I just don't know if that's going to be able to happen. Calling 45, when Michigan make a deal to beat Ohio State if it meant losing to Rutgers 78-0. Of course, referencing the beatdown that Michigan gave Rutgers just a few years ago. Tyler Simmons. Fans should not forget about Michigan State football. Spartans should be in the conversation for winning the Big Ten championship this year. Here's the thing, Tyler. You're right. Don't forget about Michigan State. I don't like to doubt Mark D'Antonio. I really don't. Good football coach. Usually gets the most out of the teams. Here's the thing. That was supposed to be this year that they were going to compete for a Big Ten title. So much production returning. A very favorable schedule. I think they hosted did they host Michigan and Ohio State? Did they host them both? I know they hosted Michigan, I believe. But I don't know about this year, man. It was last year that Michigan State was supposed to really be a potential playoff contender and certainly contend for the Big Ten title. And we saw quite the opposite after just 2 weeks of the season, but after they nearly lost to Utah State in the season opener and then went on the road to the desert and lost to Herm Edwards and Arizona State. And right then, you knew that Michigan State was probably not going to be all they were cracked up to be when we thought that they were. So we're not going to disregard them. The Big Ten is going to be tough. Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. But Nebraska on the rise. Purdue still looking pretty good. Wisconsin. Christopher Smith asking the same question. Is Wisconsin going to do anything good this year? Look, Wisconsin still got Jonathan Taylor, don't they? He is going to be the leader of that football team. They need themselves a quarterback. I know Hornibrook was good. Is good, average. I think he usually gets a bad rap, but they need a solid quarterback. Because they've got a very solid running back in Jonathan Taylor, and he's the leader of that team. But this was a very disappointing year for Wisconsin, who was number 4 to start the year and then just tanked. And that all came due to that BYU loss, a game they should not have lost, or one that I don't think anybody saw coming. So, will they do anything good this year? I'm not one to make predictions now. Have to wait and find out until we do our official predictions. But I think they're going to be fine. I think they'll be fine. At least 8 wins. I'll say that for now. 20 Savage. How about Minnesota? Now that's a Big Ten team that's on the rise. Let me tell you what. That's a team that's on the rise. PJ Fleck turning that Golden Gophers program around and annihilating Georgia Tech in that bowl game showed me something that he is building something with Minnesota. Now, once again, when we say build something, that doesn't mean that he is going to this year or next year or maybe 3 years from now go compete for a Big Ten title. That is the ultimate goal. But it's really tough to do when you're in a conference with teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, Wisconsin, guys like that. But he's building something, and I believe, and Christopher Smith says that Minnesota's going to do something big next year. I'm thinking that they really will break through, contend for maybe trying to play in the Big Ten championship game, as much like we saw Northwestern do this year. Minnesota, a lot of momentum coming into the season. PJ Fleck, one of the most, a young head coach, a fired-up head coach. I love his passion for the game, the way he motivates his players. I think Minnesota's got a lot of talent, and I would not be surprised to see them pull off a couple upsets this year and really start to kind of create some shockwaves in the Big Ten. Emperor of Rome, I saw your question. I love that question. Biggest draft bust ever. Many of them, right? Tons of them. One that sticks out to me, fairly recent, more than anything else, fairly recent. Jamarcus. How about Jamarcus Russell? If you remember him, former LSU quarterback and quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, and just did not do anything. Just could not do anything. He was, of course, the number 1 overall pick, I believe, in 2007 or 2008, and was just horrible. Absolutely horrible. It just couldn't. That was supposed to be like the franchise quarterback for the Raiders, and it just never happened. He was by far one of the biggest busts in my eyes. And his career didn't last long. And where is he now? No one knows. He hasn't even attempted. I mean, I think he tried to make a comeback, couldn't do it. And what qualifies as a bust? Is it a guy that's like gets drafted number 1 and he's supposed to be like a team's franchise quarterback, and maybe he lasts 3 years and then he just completely falls off the grid? Maybe he gets hurt, or maybe he doesn't produce. And what necessarily qualifies as a bust? That's the biggest thing there. MCD Sports 4 says he thinks Minnesota is being overhyped. We were just talking about how much, how well they play, or how well we're expecting them to play. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Someone very anti-Arkansas, Britt Hall. I won't say that word on camera, but how bad will Arkansas football be this year? And also, how do you feel about Arkansas being by far the worst team in the SEC for the foreseeable future? It's a great question. Great question, Mr. Hall. It is. Arkansas football is obviously not in a good place right now, going 2-10 in the first year of the Chad Morris era. And that's to be expected. Anytime you get a new coach, you can't expect results immediately. I would expect Arkansas to make improvements this year. However, they do have a quarterback now, a solid quarterback in Ben Hicks, a transfer from SMU. They have a very solid recruiting class. Now, I say solid because it was ranked in the top 25. I think it was top 20. However, it was towards the bottom of the SEC recruiting classes, as it usually is for the Razorbacks. But they did bring in quite a bit of solid wide receivers, which would be good for Ben Hicks to spread the ball around a little bit and maybe benefit that offense and kind of get that offense going that Chad Morris had at SMU and the offense that he wants to bring to the Razorbacks in Fayetteville. Will they be by far the worst team in the SEC for the foreseeable future? Only time will tell. I think they've been one of the worst teams in the SEC by far for a while now. Had a couple decent years under Brett Bielema, 7 wins, 8 wins, never cracked 9 under him. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the foreseeable future. For that, it's going to have to be consistent. They might be at the bottom of the SEC West, but you could be at the bottom of the SEC West and still go 6-6 or 7-5 because it's a very competitive division with Alabama, Auburn, LSU, an Ole Miss team that's getting better, Mississippi State. I mean, guys like that. So, great question. Sorry, you don't have very high feelings and strong feelings for the Razorbacks, for the Hogs. Brody L says he likes Chad Morris. I'm a fan of Chad Morris. I think he's a very kind of like PJ Fleck, a very passionate head coach. Fairly young, not horribly young, but fairly young. And it's just very difficult to bring a big style, for any coach to bring a new style of play into a school. And as we've always said, it takes time for new head coaches to hit their stride. 3 years, 4 years. I know some people disagree with that, but you've got to give them a little bit of time to figure that out. Mark TR, can a turnover chain be donated to this channel? Yeah, if you want to donate one, we'll take it. We'll totally take it. That'd be great. I think that'd be a great addition. A great addition to the Gridiron Expert. A nice little turnover chain. But yeah, if someone would like to donate that, or if you guys want to help in the super chat and donate, we will certainly look into to purchasing a turnover chain, without a doubt. Mitchie3, yes, Minnesota barely made a bowl game. It was year 2 under PJ Fleck. There have been many teams that just barely make a bowl game in the second year or the first year, but when they get year 3, that's when they really break through and win 8-9 games, somewhere around there. So you can't base the success you can't base 2019 success based off of 2018. But the past is the past. You move on, and sometimes you can see that, like, hey, 2018 was a really bad year. I don't think we're going to go win the national championship. Certainly not. But you would assume that team, you kind of have a benchmark. All right, 2018 we went 3-9. Now you improve on that. 4-8 is technically an improvement. It's not a good one, but technically it is an improvement. That's a good point by Christopher Smith there. Michigan football is Virginia basketball, or Michigan football and Virginia basketball are the same. Very good defenses, solid regular seasons, but can't achieve something great in the bowls in the tournament. And Virginia has been dominant for a while now. Andy Bennett, right? Their head coach, or Tony Bennett, whatever the name is of their head coach. Phenomenal coach. Always relying on that defense, doesn't score a lot of points, and he's like, well, we don't have to score a lot of points because Tony Bennett, so that's what I thought. Doesn't have to score a lot of points because of our stifling defense, but I don't think they've made the Final Four since I don't even know the last time Virginia made the Final Four, but since they've really started to get good, I don't think they've. My bracket sometimes gets busted because you don't want to take, I feel bad not having Virginia going to the Elite Eight or Final Four when I do the tournament challenge, but most of the times they're not able to do that. And we all know what happened last year as the #1 overall seed. Prince, 6'1", good to see you. Glad that you were able to join the chat. What's going on? Always glad to see you on here. Going through a bunch of questions here, and if you got anything to add, we would love to hear it from you. Tyler Simmons said, should the college football expand the playoffs to 6 teams? You can have 5 Power 5 teams, or the 5 power teams who won their conference championship and 1 at-large team. And in previous live chats, we have talked, and cheers to you, Prince 6'1", absolutely, without a doubt. Thank you for your continued support and appearances in the live streams and comments of videos. Always really appreciate that. But as we were talking about, we've talked about expanding the college football playoff. Would it be good? Would it be bad? Are we for it? Are we not? I think it would be good. 6, maybe not. I don't know if all Power 5 teams, like all Power 5 conference champions, should be allowed in if you did 6. Because think about this. What if you would take in Pittsburgh? What if Pittsburgh and Northwestern had won the ACC and Big Ten this year over Clemson and Ohio State? Now, you can go talk about the way basketball's set up. They have the conference tournaments, and the winner of that, you could have a team, not that this has ever happened, but you could have a team that doesn't win a single game in the regular season, win their conference tournament, and they're going to the NCAA tournament. So you can make that argument, like, hey, if they win their conference championship, they should go in, even if they beat a team like Clemson or Ohio State. But I just wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't, I don't think that should happen. I think 8 teams is the way the playoffs needs to be. I think it needs to expand, and I think it needs to be 8 teams. And I think they can format that in the best way possible. The best way they need to do. And you'll always have arguments about teams being left out. Oh, if you have 8 teams, it's going to be, you're leaving out 9, 10. You have 12 teams, you're going to leave out 13, 14. You're going to have 6, you're going to leave out 7, 8. But 8 teams is, I think, the best bet for a solid, exciting, and fair college football playoff. Emperor of Rome, the first player ever drafted was a bust. Jay Berwanger was drafted #1 overall in the first NFL draft. He never played a single snap because he refused his contract. Now, that is a bust. We were just talking about some of the biggest busts in NFL draft history. Well, bingo. You're right. A guy that gets drafted and never even plays? Yeah, I would consider that a bust, without a doubt. Yeah, Common Dude 45 saying that, of course, we were talking about Michigan football somewhat being compared to Virginia basketball, and then touching on Virginia basketball briefly and how much they've disappointed in the NCAA tournament in recent years. And as we all know, last year, he said, happened to his friend, had Virginia winning it all because they were playing dominant basketball. Loses to UMBC in the first round, the first ever 16 seed to beat a 1. And, your bracket's busted. You're done after that. Because for those of you that don't know, if you don't understand how like the tournament challenge works, it's a point system. You get points based on, you get like 10 points, I think, for every game you get right in the opening round, the round of 64. Well, those points increase obviously as you go on. So the final four isn't going to be worth 10 points. It's going to be worth like 60, 70, however many it is, 100, however many, So you can afford to, perfect brackets almost nearly impossible. But to win a tournament challenge or to finish very high, you can afford to lose a couple games in the round of 64. But if you have a solid Sweet 16, like I would say if you had 14 or 15 or, of course, all 16 of the Sweet 16 left by the time you get there, you've got a very solid bracket. Now, it would hurt if you only had 14 of the Sweet 16 and, those two teams that you didn't have in there, you had meeting in the national championship. But it's a point system, so you can afford to lose a couple games here and there as long as you don't have the team that you had losing or the game that you missed have one of those teams going very, very far into the postseason, into the tournament. Mark TR says he will send a Jalen Phillips bobblehead with a turnover chain. Go Canes. Hey, you want to send it? Get in touch with me. Go on my Twitter. We've got some contact information. We'll take it and we will display it for every single gridiron expert we've got. And that's a promise. So get in touch with me if you really want to do that, and we will make it happen. Absolutely. Tennessee fan or TTNC fan says this guy's such an Alabama homer. Not the case, but hey, everybody's entitled to an opinion. Matt Cedar, should Dwayne Haskins have stayed another year at Ohio State, or is he making the right decision to leave after starting for only 1 year? And that's a good question. Look, Dwayne Haskins, here's the thing. As a college football player, you go to, like the evaluations, and they tell you, okay, more than likely you would be drafted. The way you've played and the way you're built, you're looking at, you might be you might be a first round draft pick, you might be a second round draft pick, or they say, okay, look, you're good, but you need to stick around one more year, and then maybe you can be a first round, second round draft pick. They do that in the NBA too. So I think Dwayne Haskins had a phenomenal year last year, put up some big time numbers. He's projected to be 6 overall or somewhere in the top 10. You hear that? You hear big bucks, you go. So I think he's talented. I don't know if he's going to be successful in the NFL. I said he has a chance to be a big-time bust, but I think he probably did make the right choice. And I know from a money standpoint and from a future standpoint, he certainly made the right choice of leaving and going pro now. Good rebuttal from Legalized Quack to the Tennessee fan. 20 Savage, do I think weed should be legal in sports? Look, where is weed legal now? It is legal in Washington State. It is legal in Colorado, as we know. In many states, or in some states, and I know in a lot, they're trying to get it passed to be medical marijuana to be legal. And of course, if you make it legal for medical marijuana, people are going to get their hands on it that don't need it for medical purposes. It's bound to happen. People have it now that just do it for recreation. Should it be legal in sports? Like, I don't see any harm in it. It's not improving a performance, right? I mean, it is not improving someone's performance on the field, on the court. Do I think you certainly someone needs to be very careful not to abuse that type of substance and to go crazy with that. And I think that it's illegal for a reason. And for athletes, you smoke some weed, you get super high, maybe you make some decisions and do some things that you shouldn't do, and that hurts yourself, could hurt someone else. And so, and that's not even the case for athletes. That's the case for everybody. So, do I think it should be legal? I don't see any harm in it being legal. I really don't. But the rules are rules, and players, people, period, will break rules regardless. It's bound to happen. It will happen. Prince 6'1", watch out for Xavier Thomas next year to be a huge breakout player. Sophomore defensive end for Clemson, reminds me of Von Miller with his speed off of the edge. Absolutely. Clemson certainly going to need some big-time defensive playmakers after losing so many to the NFL draft this year. And Xavier Miller might be that guy for them. And if you're comparing him to Von Miller, it's a pretty high comparison and very good company to be in. And as he said, was the #1 defensive end and #3 overall player in the 2018 class alongside Trevor Lawrence. Richard Neal, we talked about that briefly, made a very good point. This year's NFL draft is deep on the defensive line. That's where I see many of the first couple picks in this year's NFL draft going. It's going to be towards the defensive line. You've got Nick Bosa, who's projected to be the #1 overall pick. Plenty of other defensive playmakers that are going to be drafted probably in the top 15. I don't think we'll see many people on the offensive side of the ball get drafted in the top 15. So, yeah, this is going to be a very strong defensive class. Next year, I think it'll be the opposite. I think we'll see a lot, especially quarterback-wise, offensively, quite a bit of players going pro and kind of really make out the bulk of that first part of the NFL draft. And going strong for an hour, like I said, if you're spending it with the right people and you're doing something fun enough, then, an hour feels like 10 minutes, 4 hours feels like 30 minutes, stuff like that, and certainly how I felt here. But we'll start wrapping things up here shortly because I know I've got business to take care of, and I'm sure many of you guys do as well. I appreciate those of you that have contributed to the chat and stuck around for a while. We'll answer a few more questions here. Ryan Bell says Texas A&M is a little overhyped in his opinion, and we've talked about teams that we do think could be overhyped, or maybe people are talking about too much that might not perform well. And he says in a few years, just not in 2019. But, Jimbo Fisher's got this team going in the right direction. Absolutely. Is this going to be the year that they're going to break out and really do some really good stuff? They have a really good chance to show what they're made of in week 2 when they go on the road to Clemson. And of course, we all know they nearly beat Clemson in week 2 or week 3, whenever it was, this year in College Station, only losing by 2 points. Can they stay competitive against the team that I think many people are picking to win the national championship again in 2019? That's a very good test, early test for them. Even if they don't win, can they keep it close? And that will really show what Texas A&M is made out of. Christopher Smith, good to see you. He's out of here. Well, thank you for joining the chat, and thank you for the contributions to the chat and being able to join us for a little bit. Definitely appreciate you. Mitchie 3, if Hakeem Butler has a good 40 time, then he could be the best wide receiver in the draft. Hakeem Butler has got great size, great hands. You're right. If he can show off a little bit of his speed on the 40, he's going to be a high draft pick. I'm thinking Hakeem Butler goes – I would be shocked if he goes anywhere lower than the 3rd round. I would think he'd be top 2 rounds. But I would be shocked if he goes past the 3rd round. He will be a major steal. And he needs to go to a team that needs a wide receiver. And I would think maybe later on, the New England Patriots would be a very good fit for Hakeem Butler. And I do believe that because they need some strength, some more strength at the wide receiver position. They need some size at the wide receiver position. That would be perfect for Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And speaking of the Patriots, Britt Hall, he's back. What is your opinion of how low the Patriots organization had sunk with respect to morale, I'm sure he meant morals, and the Kraft, Gordon, and other cheating scandals? Morals, whatever. That's a bad situation, guys. I mean, for those of you that do know or don't know, the Robert Kraft incident, prostitution ring that he has been involved in down in Florida, very, very bad. Josh Gordon, look, we don't even have to talk about Josh Gordon, man. I mean, he had a history of that stuff. The Patriots used him for as long as they could. I think everybody who had a little bit of sense knew that Josh Gordon was going to go back to his old ways. And unfortunately, that is the problem of an addiction. It is very hard to get off of something, regardless of what that addiction is. He's addicted to that. He was addicted to marijuana and to drugs. And Patriots were able to use him and use his services for a while and benefited them, helped them win some games, helped set some history. I think he caught Tom Brady's 500th career touchdown pass. I think he's going to get a Super Bowl ring. So the Patriots have been the butt of everybody's joke and have been one of the most hated organizations in the NFL for a while now. You've got the cheating scandal, Spygate, Deflategate. You've got Robert Kraft involved, and you've got Julian Edelman was suspended for substance abuse, and so was Josh Gordon. But Josh Gordon had a history of that. You can't reflect that purely on the Patriots. But it has gotten bad. But it will not affect the New England Patriots organization in terms of how they perform on the field. whatever happens to Robert Kraft, which I don't think it will be anything too major, the Patriots will still perform well on the field because this does not affect them. I feel for the Kraft family. I think it is very humiliating. It is wrong. It is immoral for what he did. But the performance on the field will not change. That is something that is really right now between Robert Kraft. He's the owner. He doesn't really have a boss. But it's between Robert Kraft, his family, and God more than anything. Jalen Teasley said, do I smoke? And proceeds to say the Cardinals will win the Super Bowl next season. Do you smoke? That is a bold statement. I'm sure you're just joking around. Certainly ain't going to happen, though. Cardinals do not have a chance at winning the Super Bowl next year. And if they do, come back. Come back and please tell me wrong. Seriously, honestly. So yeah. Just going through the comments one last time, make sure I didn't miss anybody. This has been a great discussion, guys. Running over a little bit of an hour, a little bit over an hour this time. And every time I say it might be relatively short, and we tend not to. That's because, like I said, sometimes an hour just feels like 10 minutes when you're doing this type of stuff. So we thank you guys once again for coming to the chat. Thank you guys. If you are a subscriber, we appreciate you. We appreciate you guys coming to the chat, especially on an afternoon. I know mid-afternoon can be difficult for some people. If you are not a subscriber, please continue subscribing. Help us out. Help out the channel. Help us get to 2,000 before the end of March. That's been a major goal for us to hit that milestone, and it certainly slowed down. We appreciate your guys' constant support. Emperor of Rome, good seeing you. Thank you for stopping by. Same to Comic Dude 45. Same to Prince 6'1", and everybody else for contributing to the chat. You guys have a safe rest of the day, and we will see you guys again